Are you familiar with the phrase line upon line, precept upon precept? Well, you should know it's almost certainly a pretty significant mistranslation of Isaiah 28:10. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And if we look in Isaiah 28, the prophet there is condemning corrupt leaders in Israel and Judah. And he's particularly condemning prophets and mocking them as drunkards who cannot competently communicate the messages that they're being given by God. And so when we get to verse 9, we read, and here this is from the NRSV UE, whom will he teach knowledge? And to whom will he explain the message? Those who are weaned from milk, those taken from the breast? For it is precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Truly with stammering lip and with another tongue, he will speak to this people. Now here the NRSV UE preserves that likely mistranslation with the idea of precept upon precept, line upon line. And here's the Hebrew of this passage. It says, ki tzav letzav, tzav letzav, kav lakav, kav lakav, za'er sham, za'er sham. And this sounds an awful lot like rather repetitive gibberish, but people have been trying to make sense of it for a while, and they assume that tzav is an alternate form of tzava, which would mean commandment. And then they're also assuming that kav is related to this word that means string, that is a measuring line or a plumb line. And so they think of that as a metaphor for some kind of line that is used to establish standards or something like that. And thus we get precept upon precept, line upon line. But more recently, scholars have come up with a couple of better ideas about what's going on here, because in the context, we're supposed to be talking about prophets who are drunk and can't really speak to adults, and so have to speak to babies. And so the two main theories about what's going on here, one, that this is intended to sound like gibberish, tzav letzav, tzav letzav, kav lakav, kav lakav. This is kind of like how barbarians was a name for people who didn't speak Greek because their speech sounded like bar, 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 bar. You couldn't understand it, and that's where you get the word barbarian. And so maybe this is just mocking another tongue, stammering lips, people who don't speak intelligibly. And so in some modern translations of this passage, you will see them talking about speaking in gibberish or speaking in another tongue. Another option is that these are actually names for letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Tzav could be the name of the letter tzadeh. Kav could be the name of the letter kof, which are two letters that occur one after the other in the Hebrew alphabet, in which case this would be continuing this idea of speaking to people who have just been weaned, to babies. You're going to teach them the alphabet, learn tzav letzav, kav lakav, kav lakav. So an alternative may be to understand this passage as baby talk and as about basic learning of the principles of the alphabet. So either way, what it doesn't refer to is some notion that revelation comes line upon line, precept upon precept. This is mocking the prophets who are not communicating a competent message but are doing things wrong because they are unrighteous. So we shouldn't be interpreting this as some kind of positive message about the way prophets communicate. This is making fun of the way these drunkard prophets are failing to communicate God's message because of their unrighteousness. So there are a lot of different ways this is rendered in different translations. Sometimes they'll just transliterate, and you'll see tzav letzav, kav lakav, kav lakav. Sometimes they'll say gibberish. Sometimes they'll come up with other ways to try to communicate the idea that's going on here. But again, it's almost certainly a mistranslation to render line upon line, precept upon precept. And unfortunately, even the updated edition of the New Revised Standard Version doesn't seem to get it right, at least in my opinion. And the fit for this video has been the University of Oxford.